Welcome to the Let's Eat Grandma Job Seekers Podcast.
Welcome to the Let's Eat Grandma Job Seekers. I can't even talk today. Welcome to the Job Seekers Podcast number 9. This is Just Ask Chris, MINISODE number 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to take commonly asked job search questions, break them down, and give you the information in one in-depth answer. So we're doing this as an experiment. And we're doing this really to give you another way to learn complex information. So what we do is we take that complex information, like resume writing in the English language, and give you a way to digest it easily. Little resume snacks, if you will. These episodes will be very short. That is around 5 to 10 minutes to make sure that you get a good answer as quickly as possible. So without further ado, this is podcast number 9, Just Ask Chris, MINISODE number 1. All right, in this podcast, you are going to learn the answer to the most commonly asked resume question I get. How long should it be? Oh my gosh, why is this such a hot topic? You will have people who say it should be the shortest possible document ever. You'll have people that saying it should be long. There's a lot of confusion out there, especially if you go out there on the internet and start doing the research yourself. I want to tell you guys a quick story. I was on Quora the other day where I like to answer questions about resumes. And there was one guy who was just so adamant about the fact that the resume should be one page. He's like, I've been doing this for 30, 40 years and the resume should just be always one page, never longer. And I'm like, I actually responded, I'm like, dude, are you serious? What if you have, 20, 30 years of experience? That's relevant. And you want to find a way to convey it to recruiters. How can you possibly fit all that information on a single page? And so his answer was something like, he's like, I've been, in the field for about 40 years and I can get my resume down to one page. I have like 3 or 4 different degrees. I'm like, if that's all relevant information, you're probably going to have a hard time unpacking all of those bullet points. So that story kind of kicks it off, and it does give you some context to show why this is, kind of such a big deal. There are people who fight about it on Quora, nerds like me. But here's the answer. The resume should be as long as it needs to be, but short enough to remain interesting. And I'll repeat that again. The resume should be as long as it needs to be, but short enough to remain interesting. So this is advice that's been coined by writing professionals as the miniskirt theory. And no, unfortunately, I did not come up with that clever name, but kudos to whoever did. I think it makes it easy to remember something like this. So the point is, like a resume, a miniskirt would be as long as it needs to be, but short enough to remain interesting. So if it's too short, there will be no functionality involved. It just will be inappropriate. It won't get the job done. But on the other hand, if it's too long, you are just going to bore your reader. And what I'll do is I'll kind of break that down further. Yes, break that down further and look at the 2 different extremes when it comes down to it. So there are those 5-page resumes that detail out every single thing that professional has done in the past. Every accomplishment, every job description just goes on and on and on. You may have one professional experience that ends up being about half a page. And then on the other hand, you have those 1-page resumes with very little information about what the professional actually did that makes them qualified for that position. So you have those 2 extremes. What I believe is that the answer falls somewhere in between. So if you refer back to our last podcast, number 8, it's 3 things hiring managers want to look for in their resume. What they said is, they spent anywhere between a few seconds to a few minutes on the resume in the initial hiring stages. So given that information, yes, you know that a hiring manager does not spend 10 minutes like you wish they would on your resume. They spend anywhere from a few seconds to, and I think this is generous, but a few minutes on your resume. It's important to remember that yes, you should make it as short as possible, but during that short amount of time that your hiring manager has on your resume, you need to make sure that you're showcasing the amount of value, the most amount of value possible in that 1-page document. All right. So when I'm writing a resume for most business professionals, and this will give you guys kind of a good example to kind of riff off of, but they tend to be between 1 and 2 pages long. In fact, 95% of the resumes that I write as a professional And granted, I've been doing this for a while. These resumes are getting success. They tend to be around the 1 to 2 page range. I rarely go over 2 pages. And that's because I just think there is so much you can fill. Even with a lifetime of relevant experiences, 2 pages should be enough to suffice. So I'm going to give you an example of a 1-pager, and I'm going to give you an example of a 2-pager. So, all right, we have a college student. His name is Jimmy. He is actually just about to graduate from college. He has 2 professional experiences listed. These were, both jobs that he held during college, also kind of relevant. He has an internship, and he also has a summary at the top that we will keep short to about 3 sentences. This is an example of a 1-pager. This is, I think, concise enough to get the information across that he's qualified for those entry-level positions. And it's just going to all around be a good choice for him to be 1-page. All right, we have scenario number 2. We will call this guy P. Terry, named after my second favorite burger place, Underwater Burger. But okay, so P. Terry has 20 years of marketing experience. He has 7 jobs that he's had in the past that are all marketing related, or something so good with such good transferable skills that we decided to keep it on. So with these 7 experiences, his education section, and also a skill set. So we have a skill section for him. So possibly, MailChimp, Marketo, whatever that's relevant to marketing. And also that summary at the top, which is going to be maybe a little bit longer, possibly 4 sentences, maybe 5 if we're stretching it. So with all of that information for Mr. P. Terry, his resume should still come out to 2 pages, and it will definitely be a relevant 2 pages. All right, I'll repeat what I said once again. The resume should be as long as it needs to be, but as short enough to remain interesting. That being said, another quick consideration, think about the standard. What is the industry standard for the position you're applying for? And there are a few industries and positions that would expect you to write a longer resume, and I'll just give you some examples. Possibly a federal resume that asks about everything you did. Academia. Yes, academia tends to be longer. So I had a professor once. He taught me actually how to write resumes. He was the one who instilled the principle of being as short as possible. Ironically, his resume ended up being, I think, around 6 or 7 pages of experience, and that's just the way academia works. He was a professor. He was expected to list out all the educational credentials, speaking engagements, publications, things like that. Those tend to make your resume longer. Another example might be if you're applying for an IT consultant position and the company wants to see some of the past projects you've worked on. All right, one last time, just so you can remember, the resume should be as long as it needs to be, but short enough to remain interesting. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed the kind of short nature of this format on this episode. I want to hear back your guys' advice. Leave comments, send me a message at projects@letseatgrandma.com and let me know what you thought about this podcast. My call to action for you actually is, number 1, listen to that hiring managers episode. That's podcast number 8, the next chance you get. And then send us your resume to that email. So it's projects, projects, @letseatgrandma.com. Submit it with a subject, podcast number 9, and we will give you our thoughts on how long your resume should really be. Maybe you have tons of experience and you only have a 1-pager, and I think you need to flesh those things out. We'll let you know. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll connect with you next time.